Hey, Pastor, welcome back to my podcast, Pastors Thriving Strategies for Lead Pastors Towards Growth in Money and Ministry. I'm Kevin, your host, and today I'm kicking off a three-part series called, it's based on my challenge, the Make More Disciples Challenge, and it all starts with a crucial question: who are you discipling? What I've found, I've done a lot of market research along the way, and a lot of pastors that I've talked to, and one thing is really kind of in common with all of them. Most churches make a very, very broad, like a broad spectrum approach towards making disciples in their contexts. Not a bad strategy, but a strategy. And what do? They offer like Bible studies, small groups, and programs. It's really all about programming that gets them, that makes them feel like, okay, we're navigating through the movement of making more disciples. And so honestly, as we just launch this, as we start this, I just got to ask, how's it going? Like, how's it going as you are navigating through the tensions of making disciples? Is it working? Are you finding that you're hitting the results? Or do you feel like something is missing? Could it be enhanced? Could it be tweaked a little bit? Is there some room for improvement? Because that's really what I want to help you with today. I don't want to like poke holes in your process, but I do want to help you make this as powerful as it needs to be in the context that you're doing. So buckle up. Let's dive into this. Number one, what's the problem? The problem is, as I see it, churches are too broad in their angle of discipleship. There's just a too broad approach. In fact, one of the ideas that I want to talk about with this is that we just cast this wide net into this sea of people. And then we just, as we extract that net, we just see who's in the net, what's in the net. And that's going to be the thing that we use for discipleship. Unfortunately, I think it's wrong. I don't think that that's the right strategy that we should be using here. We're not casting a net. We're actually fishing with a hook. If we keep with a fishing analogy, Jesus used this fishing analogy all the time. I'll make you fishers of men. And yet we see this image, we get this imagery in our minds about some of the biblical stories, even where Jesus is telling Peter, hey, cast your net on the other side of the boat for a big catch, a deep catch, a powerful catch. And he does that. And so that's the angle we take into this discipleship moment. We take a net and we throw it in, hoping that we're going to catch a lot of people. The reality is that most churches aren't structured to receive a big catch. They're not prepared for it. They don't have the boats in place. They don't have all the things lined up that are necessary to be able to equip or clean up a large catch of fish. And so what do we do with that? Well, most churches, let me just read it like this. Most churches treat discipleship like throwing a wide net into the ocean, hoping to catch anything. They're hoping to catch anything. And then this is where we take the intentional approach to this. That's what I meant to catch, right? I went fishing, I caught this. That's what I was intending to catch. No, that's not really the way that things need to go down. They offer, this is the nets, right? They offer as many programs and events as possible, hoping that anyone and everyone will find a way to relate to something and get on board. This is a buffet style church. My wife and I used to talk about or joke about this a lot, where we talked about like the buffet approach to church, where anyone could get anything they want at any time of the day. And I'll be honest with you, buffets produce fat people. I mean, I'm just kidding. I don't want to be stereotypical here. That's not what I'm trying to do. Discipleship needs to be like as savory as a great steak restaurant. You go there because they offer a great steak. It's been a passion of mine or a fantasy of mine to be able to go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse. I've yet to be able to go to one. I always wanted to go to one when I was in that context and pastoring. I wanted to take I wanted to take some people there. There's no Ruth Chris Steakhouse around where I'm at, so that's part of my problem. The closest one to us is like Baltimore, Maryland, which is about 80 miles away. But why would you go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse? You would go there for a great steak, right? And or like Fogo de Chão, like a great Brazilian steakhouse. You'd go there for great steak. What is your church known for? Like why would someone come to your church And you would go to a Ruth Chris Steakhouse because I'm going to experience a fantastic steak there. My gosh, I feel like I need to set up a date with my wife and we need to go get a great steak. That's going to be the product of this conversation today. Listen, here's what I want you to know, okay? Write this down, grab this, hold on to this. Discipleship should not be random. It needs to be specific, it needs to be strategic, and it needs to be targeted. Honestly, this is what I'm going to teach you to do in the Make More Disciples Challenge. But here's some of the common mistakes that churches make when it comes to this. They try to disciple everyone the same way, and it ends up being ineffective at best. And we just have these blanket statements or these blanket opportunities for people to press into, and they're not strategic. They're just making you feel like we did something. Yes. And what does it do? It makes you feel busy. It makes you feel purposeful. It makes you feel exhausted. And it also, on the receiving end of it, it makes people feel overwhelmed. It makes them feel like, I'm never going to get all this. I'm going through a class right now, a training. And honestly, I feel like most days, like, I'm just not getting this. I'm not understanding. It's so hard. And maybe it's the fact that I'm not having enough, an opportunity to try it enough. And honestly, therein lies my largest, most profound, pronounced declaration. Discipleship has much more to do with action and activity than it does with information and learning. And this is where I see churches struggling with this the most. We try to disciple everyone and end up with ineffective and inefficient processes. We offer programs without a clear goal for spiritual transformation. We use language like wherever you are, just take your next step. And there's always a next part of your journey, and there's these circular motions and all these things. What that ends up making people feel is that there's never a time when this is over. And is it true that there's never a time that this is over? Yes, that's true. But you do want people to feel like, wow, I'm getting this. I'm learning it. I understand it. It's working for me, right? We measure success in this by attendance rather than life change. And we really need to come up with a great metric or measurement tool to be able to analyze this in an effective way. Picture this. I want to, we'll keep with the fishing analogy. My son Ryder, loves to go fishing. I don't love so much to go fishing. It's never been a passion of mine, but for his sake, I will try to figure it out and we'll make it happen. But picture this, two fishermen, one blindly throwing a net into the water, hoping that something swims in it. The other one knows exactly what kind of fish he's after. He selects the right bait, positions himself in the best spot. Who do you think is going to be more successful at this? That's the difference between generic discipleship and intentional discipleship. I want you to be and become very strategic, very precise in this, because when you do that, when you give yourself the freedom to really hone in on this process, you're going to find success. You're going to find better success. Two elusive terms. You're going to find success. One of the first things we cover in the Make More Disciples Challenge, I'm going to give you some of the secrets today, is we actually walk through who your ideal church avatar is. Now, I get a little pushback on this, and it's probably one of the most controversial parts of this whole system is just that idea of avatar. What do you mean, an avatar? Do you mean that my church isn't positioned to reach all people? Yeah, I really do. You're not. Paul used that phrase, and I think that's what trips us up. And he said that is, I'm all things to all people. So he says this. This comes from 1 Corinthians 9:19 through 23. And this conversation, to the Jews, I became as a Jew in order to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became as one under the law that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law, I became as one outside the law, that I might win those outside the law. To the weak, I became as weak, that I might win the weak. I became all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I do it for the sake of the gospel, that I might share with them in its blessings. Now, here's the point I want to make, because Paul actually makes the point here. We just get hung up on that really good line. I became all things to all people. We utilize that, but he's telling you a strategy. I became like the person that I wanted to target. To the Jews, I became like the Jews, right? To those outside the law, I became as one outside the law. He's telling you that to attract the people that you want to reach, you have to become that. You got to think that. You got to process that. You've got to position yourself like that. Now, because of the confusion and difficulty of this in our context, we don't do this. We refrain from identifying the specific kind of person that our church is designed to reach in this moment. And when we do that, discipleship feels hard. It feels heavy. It feels overwhelming. It feels like it's not working fast enough. If you would give yourself the freedom to identify who is the person that we want to reach, need to reach, are around in this setting for this season, for this time of life, learn that person, learn their mannerisms, their innuendos, their overwhelmings, their presuppositions, their problems, and then start speaking to that, you will win. You will win every time. Like, look at how Jesus discipled this. He spoke to the masses, and I'm going to teach you how to do this in the challenge as well. But his real investment was in just 12 people. And within the 12, you know that he even focused even deeper down with just 3, with Peter, James, and John. Jesus did not treat everyone the same. He tailored his approach based on who he was speaking to, who he was developing, and who he wanted to see the most impact or influence out of. And then you have Paul. Paul followed the exact same model. He discipled many, but he intentionally poured into Timothy, into Titus, and then into, other key leaders along the way. What's the key takeaway with this? Churches must move from general outreach to specific impact. Instead of asking how many people are coming, we should be asking, who are we intentionally discipling? And what specific results are we seeing as a result of that specific intentional work? All right, part number 3 of this. How do you identify your target disciples, your target avatar? And again, we're going to speak much more deeply and profoundly in this in the Make More Disciples Challenge, which you can find a link to. If you want to be a part of that, you look in my link and in my show notes, and there is a link in there to get to be a part of this. How do you get clear on who you're called to disciple? Here's 3 easy and essential steps. Number 1, you're going to define the type of person that you're called to disciple. I know this feels awkward, doesn't it? It feels like this is hard. Are these new believers? Are these stagnant Christians? Are these emerging leaders? What kind of person are these? Are these married people, single people, or the youth people? Who are these people? What age group or lifestyle are they in? Are they men, women, families, young professionals? A church trying to disciple everyone ends up discipling really no one very well. A church that clearly identifies, like the example here, young adults transitioning into careers, they can create a focused and effective discipleship strategy that connects most pronounced and profoundly with that exact person. So number 2, you're going to clarify their needs and barriers to growth. This is understanding your avatar's problem. Who are they? What are they dealing with in life right now that you can speak to? What's preventing them from growing spiritually? Let me give you a case in point. A couple years ago, a lot of years ago, about 20 years ago, we were tasked with doing some discipleship stuff with a group of college students. And so we started learning the college students, and what we learned of them is that they like to be out late. They like to enjoy time together. They like to have, whatever. And so we structured a kind of a church service type style for them that started at 9 p.m. and went to like 11 p.m. And we'd always have food with us. And we always had just these great connective moments. And it was a really powerful thing because we understood how they related and how they thought and what was important to them. So what's preventing them from growing spiritually? Here's some gauging questions that you can go through. Do they lack biblical knowledge or mentorship, accountability, or community? If your primary audience is young fathers, for example, is their biggest challenge may be a lack of time or of lack of spiritual confidence. Knowing this can tailor your discipleship opportunities to fit their real needs. And then number 3, let's create a clear pathway for them. Once you define who you're discipling, you can design intentional next steps to meet them. If your focus is on those young professionals, your discipleship pathway might include like monthly mentorship meetups or an accountability group on specific something, on biblical leadership, or practical steps for integrating faith into your workplace. These are all examples of highly intensive or intentional discipleship moments. If Jesus were designing your church's discipleship plan, would he just hope that people showed up? No. He'd have a very intentional, focused pathway based on who he was discipling. So you got to know your people. All right, so here's your takeaway. Effective discipleship is not about reaching everyone. It's about reaching the right people at the right time. That's what this is. Your challenge, who are you really called to disciple? That would be the challenge for you today. Let's get it innate and specific with this. Write it down. Define their struggles. Identify their needs. This simple practice will transform your approach in discipleship. I promise you this. I guarantee this. Now, this is going to be a 3-part series. And in the second episode, we're going to move to identify who you're discipling, to how to equip and mobilize others to multiply your impact. And honestly, if you want to take this further, I really want to encourage you to join my Make More Disciples Challenge. Every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm hosting a preview webinar for this that you can join up for. You're going to find that link in the show notes below. Join that. Costs nothing to be there. You can check it out. You can hear what this is about. You can learn what it is to be a part of this. And maybe this is the thing that's going to help you propel this into the future. What's been your experience with discipleship? Have you had success in doing discipleship from like a net casting approach? Or have you found some success in like really narrowing this down to being very specific? Talk back to me in this. What has been your experience along the way? All right, guys, thanks. Enough for now. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll go from there.